Legal glad to have back on the program. It's the senator from the great state of Texas, friend of mine, Ted Cruz. Ted, how are you?
Thanks, my friend. Great to be with you.
All my Twitch people got to hear that we were, setting up the interview, and the people who are listening right now across the nation, 145 stations strong, we're excited to hear from you because there is so much going on. It's a monumental time in this country, and I want to get into the Biden agenda, which you're very unhappy about already 2 days in. I want to get into the fact that the Lincoln Project thinks that you're the next target for them, which I find to be very odd. They claim to be Republicans. But I'd be remiss, Ted, if I didn't start with the fact that Chuck Schumer couldn't say insurrection today. Anything on that?
Well, I know Chuck is very excited to be majority leader, and I guess he let that excitement out today.
Come on, man. When he said that, you can see the look on his face, Ted, and he was so disappointed that he's on the record forever, and that's what came out of his mouth. I just think that was hilarious. But there you go. You have to have a little bit of levity in
I
the
gotta
midst
say,
of this.
Pag, I really wish he hadn't said that because I could have lived my entire life without that mental image.
And without hearing that word coming out of that guy's mouth. All right,
Yeah.
Ted, it's a strange time, and I want to get into impeachment. I want to get into what your former professor Alan Dershowitz said about having a trial for now an American citizen, which is very odd. But again, I'd be remiss if I didn't start also. We got the Chuck Schumer stuff out of the way. Thank God. Let's never talk about that again. But let's go to January 6th. Ted, do you feel like you did something wrong on January 6th?
I did my duty. I stood up and fought for the men and women of Texas, for 29 million Texans. And what I urge Congress to do is still the path I think we should have taken, which is to appoint an election commission to conduct an emergency 10-day audit, to examine all of the claims that have been made of voter fraud, to examine the evidence, and to assess them on the merits. And I think that would have been a much better outcome because it would have produced much greater confidence in the election, much greater faith in the integrity of the election. Unfortunately, Senate Democrats didn't want to hear that at all. They wanted to charge ahead.
Yeah.
And so Congress chose not to do that. And I think we find ourselves instead in a much more divided time as a result of Congress not going down that path.
What you and Hawley and Gates and others did is prescribed in the Constitution. In fact, the Democrats did it in 2005, and nobody said a word. The fact that a few idiots broke into the Capitol and did this horrible thing, and they're all facing charges, they're all in trouble. One woman is dead, for God's sakes. And I'd like to know why, by the way. I'm not sure why she got shot in the face. Either way, you've got a situation where people like me, a conservative in America who loves American values and loves the Constitution, wanted you to challenge as is prescribed by the Constitution. Nobody would ever, I would never break into the Capitol to stop you from doing what I wanted you to do, which is what you were in the midst of doing. So why is it that there are people literally saying you should be kicked out of the Senate for doing what the Constitution says you can do in the time of an election? Is it because people don't understand the Constitution, or do they really think you did something horribly wrong?
Well, look, I think it's Democrats playing political games, and right now they feel victorious. The Democrats in Washington right now are like the end of every Godfather movie,
right?
Where every movie ends with they settle their debts and basically try to eliminate all their enemies. That's
right.
What the Democrats are trying to do. It's what the media is trying to do. So they're going after conservatives. They're going after, and their objective, by the way, they're not just attacking Donald Trump. When they're attacking Trump, they're also attacking you and me and everyone listening to this show. And the Democrats' objective is to say that every one of the 75 million people who voted for Donald Trump is a racist, bigoted, insurrectionist, rioter who should be cast out of society. I mean, they are right now being vindictive, and they're trying to settle scores. And it's not right. You pointed out, and you were exactly right on this, the terrorists who attacked the Capitol. What they did was despicable. It was wrong. It was criminal. It was completely unacceptable. And they should be fully prosecuted and go to jail for a very long time.
It's Senator Ted Cruz. Go ahead.
The difference between you and me and the Democrats is that we consistently condemn violence.
Right.
Violence is wrong. You don't have a right to riot. You don't have a right to burn stores down. You don't have a right to murder people, to assault people. And whether the violence comes from left-wing activists, as we saw all last year, or whether the violence comes from the right wing, it is wrong, whatever your politics, Everybody has a right to free speech. You have a right to protest. You have a right to speak. You don't have a right to commit violence. And you and I have been consistent on that on both sides. Doesn't matter what your politics are.
Right.
Your rights end when you commit acts of violence.
It's Senator Ted Cruz. You couldn't be more correct in two very, very glaring examples recently. George Floyd, we all agreed he should not be dead. Nobody thought that guy should have had his knee in his neck for 8.5 minutes. Everybody agreed, yet the left pretended you and I didn't agree, and we were somehow to be marginalized, and we were bad. You and I and everybody on the left, everybody in this country agrees what happened at the Capitol was wrong, it was violence, it was ridiculous, and they should all go to prison. And nobody argues that. Somehow, Ted, they made it out like you and Hawley and Joe Pags and Hannity all wanted that to happen. How are they successful in doing that? I don't get it.
Well, because they control the media, and the media are now I mean, they wear partisan jerseys,
yeah.
and they're basically fangirls for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris right now. And by the way, prepare yourself for the canonization of Kamala Harris, because the media is getting ready to elevate her to sainthood in the coming weeks. You can already see they are like groupies at a Beatles concert.
Wow. It makes you crazy because now even Ted, her party didn't want her to be the president. And now she's the vice president. I mean, 3% of Democrats voted for her in the primaries. I don't know why she's now the heir apparent. Do you know why she rose like she did?
Well, Biden picked her, and he promised he was going to pick a woman. And then in the wake of George Floyd, I think he felt significant pressure to choose an African-American woman. And he chose her, and I understand why. Look, she's the vice president now. I served with her a number of years in the Senate. On a personal level, she's very pleasant. She's easy to work with. In fact, in 2017, she was on the losing end of a bet with me on the World Series, and so had to come by my office wearing an Astros hat and giving me gifts from California when the Dodgers got beat.
Nice.
So, look, on a personal level, she's perfectly pleasant. But what has happened, we don't have an independent media anymore. We don't have journalists anymore. The press are partisans, and they see this as an opportunity to strike back at people they have declared to be their enemies. Listen, I think everyone needs to ratchet things down a little bit. I think we need to ratchet the rhetoric down. Our country is horribly divided. The hate, the anger, the vicious rhetoric. We're all Americans. I actually was glad to see Joe Biden in the inauguration speech call for unity. That's the right thing to call for. It just would be nice if some of the Democrats would listen to it, but they're too busy looking to settle scores and destroy their enemies to actually want to unite Americans. And I think that suggests we're going to have a very difficult 2 years for this country, because they seem hell-bent on ramming through an extreme left-wing policy agenda that's going to do a lot of damage to a lot of jobs. It's going to hurt the state of Texas, and it's going to hurt the whole country. It's
Senator Ted Cruz. Always appreciate the time and the access. Of course, Republican in the great state of Texas. When it comes to this impeachment garbage, I saw Alan Dershowitz give a seminar on Rumble the other day, and he talked about how you can't try in the Senate an American citizen in the hopes of stopping him from running for an office. And he explained it very clearly that the impeachment process, the mechanism is put in place because this is a mechanism to get rid of somebody who may have committed some sort of a crime, high crime or misdemeanor, and should be removed from office. If the person is not in office, they are not to be tried by the Senate. If they committed a crime, they get a judicial trial and due process that way. The Senate only tries people on articles of impeachment in the hopes of either exonerating or removing the person. Donald Trump is an American citizen now. This to me seems to be, and again, Dershowitz explained this and it made sense to me, that they can now impeach me and try me in the Senate if they're afraid I might run for office one day, and that's not the way it's supposed to be, Ted. Is this legal constitutionally or not?
Well, I think the best answer is that it's an open question. There are serious arguments on both sides of that question as a matter of constitutional law. As you know, Alan Dershowitz is a friend. He was my former law professor, taught me criminal law.
Right.
The arguments he's putting forward are serious and real in this regard. There is a real debate among constitutional scholars about what are called late impeachments, whether they are allowed. In other words, can an impeachment proceed after an office holder have left office?
Right.
There are precedents for it. The Senate has conducted impeachment trials after office holders have left office. If you look at English common law, where a lot of our impeachment proceedings were taken from, there were precedents there of so-called late impeachments. And so that is one of many reasons that this is an open constitutional question, why going down the road of impeachment is a bad idea.
Yeah.
I think what the Democrats are doing right now is really vindictive. It's petty. They're consumed with hatred for Donald Trump.
And they won, Ted. Why are they such sore winners? I don't get it. They won everything.
It is their animating force that they just are filled with hatred. And so you think of the challenges in this country. We have a global pandemic. We have tens of millions of Americans out of work. We ought to be coming together and helping small businesses reopen their doors and get back to work. The American people want to provide for their families. We ought to be focusing on that.
Yeah.
The Democrats instead want to spend the next month or two mired in an impeachment trial.
Crazy. Because
they hate Donald Trump. I think it's a serious mistake. I think it's petty and vindictive, and we shouldn't be doing it. And the Democrats don't care.
I know that you're short on time. I've got about 2 minutes left. I'm going to go very quickly here. Is there any chance 17 Republicans vote to convict this guy? And if so, can the Republican Party survive? I don't think it can.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think you may see a handful of Republicans vote to convict. We saw a handful of Republicans in the House vote to impeach,
right.
but I don't think it's going to be anywhere close to 17.
Okay, the next one has to be, when it comes to the Lincoln Project, they think that they're somebody and did something. I think they're a bunch of pretend former Republicans who just have hate in their hearts. They say you're the target now. They got Trump out of the way. Now it's Ted Cruz. Do you care about that? Does that worry you?
Well, if they're shooting at you, it means you're over the target.
Right.
And so these guys, they got to make a buck. They're grifters. And they've made a whole lot of money personally attacking Donald Trump. Suddenly their business model doesn't work. And so they've decided the next person they want to attack is me. All right, that's fine. If they want to do that, I think it's a testament of their recognition that I am leading conservatives standing and fighting for principle, for the Constitution, for the rule of law, and I'm going to continue doing so. And if they think I'm going to suddenly back off and stop fighting for 29 million Texans, then they're sorely mistaken.
I agree with you. TedCruz.org, TedCruz.org. Make sure you go there. Last one has to be the way the media already is handling Joe Biden. One of the first questions in the first press secretary's news conference was, do you think that they're going to change the color scheme inside of Air Force One? And Jen Psaki said, wow, what a great question. We've been doing the inauguration stuff today, so we probably won't get a chance to ask the president that, but that's a good one. That's a good question. Ted, were they trolling us? Was that a real question from the media? You're going to change the color scheme inside Air Force One? Really?
Well, they'll follow up by asking, the president's favorite flavor of ice cream.
Right.
And, other really hard-hitting. Donald Trump killed the media.
Yeah, I agree.
There used to be, look, CNN, 5 years ago, CNN was lefty and they were biased, but they tried to be journalists. You could see them trying. They didn't do it very well, but they made an attempt.
Yeah.
They don't make an attempt anymore. I mean, they are, I would say they're an official mouthpiece for the Democratic National Committee, but to be honest, they're further left than that. I mean, they are open socialists and Marxists now, and because they hate Trump so much, just about every major mainstream journalist has thrown off any pretense of objectivity, and so they're just on Team Biden. The only thing they'll do is push Biden to go further left. That's the only thing, and they'll cheer him every step of the way. So the first day in office, Joe Biden signs executive orders shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, stopping building the wall, granting executive amnesty to millions. All of that is an assault on working men and women. He took away 11,000 jobs on the Keystone Pipeline, 8,000 union members. With a stroke of a pen, Joe Biden says, you're all fired. And what does the media do? They throw hosannas and rose petals at his feet. I think that is misguided and wrong, and we shouldn't have a president and an administration destroying jobs of hardworking Americans. But it's going to take you and me to make that point, because the media certainly is not going to.
We're going to continue to make the point, and I'm glad that you went there. It's Ted Cruz, the junior senator, great state of Texas. Ted, let's do it again very soon. I appreciate you.
Terrific. Thanks, my friend.